Thank you for your interest in Gleaning with Hope's Harvest. Remember that attendance and viewing of this orientation is required for Gleaning with Hope's Harvest in 2022. You will need to take a quiz after this video to be approved to glean with us, as well as complete a few other steps to be fully registered and approved volunteer. Make sure to pay attention and feel free to rewatch this video or parts of the video to familiarize yourself with our volunteer guidelines. And check for follow-up links to quizzes and forms on our registration page and in the video description. In this video, we'll be covering all the necessary information you'll need to know to glean with us this season. Here's a quick overview of our agenda. To begin, we'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. Hope's Harvest acknowledges that it operates on the traditional, ancestral, and contemporary lands of the Narragansett, Nipmuc, Niantics, Wampanoag, and Manasian indigenous peoples. This stolen land was cared for and called home by many more indigenous tribes from time immemorial, now since gone. Native peoples then and now cultivated the land and animals in symbiosis, living in partnership with the natural world in a fundamentally sustainable way that we could learn much from as we suffer from the effects of an industrialized global food system. Now more than ever, indigenous communities are suffering the effects of food insecurity, a byproduct of a colonialist state which has limited their access to traditional resources and knowledge that have been cultivated for thousands of years. Increased access to quality food, self-determination, and food sovereignty for these communities has never been more important, and Hope's Harvest is committed to showing up in partnership with Indigenous leaders who are taking a stand today, as they always have, for the earth and their traditional relationship with the land and the abundance it provides. Before we dive into the gleaning action, let's address the tomato in the room. We have a new logo. As you may or may not know, Hope's Harvest has been an independent but fiscally sponsored program of Farm Fresh Rhode Island since 2018. This means they have allowed us to accept donations and grants under their 501c3 nonprofit status, while also mentoring our program and providing a huge amount of support in terms of infrastructure like trucks and cold storage, and a place to call home when we parked our trucks and came in from the field. Over the years, Hope's Harvest has grown in many ways and come to appreciate the various areas of overlap and opportunities for partnership with Farm Fresh. As a founder, it's been an absolute joy and privilege to have the unflagging support of Farm Fresh as Hope's Harvest has evolved into the strong, impactful program it is today. We're deeply committed to Hope's Harvest and the work we do, and have been reflecting over the past couple of years on the best way to steward this work so that it not only continues but flourishes, and is able to meet the needs of our community over the long term. With that goal in mind, we began conversations at the beginning of 2021 about what it would look like to merge Hope's Harvest into Farm Fresh so we could become a more integrated program of theirs. While there were lots of questions to think about, ultimately we felt like this was a good path forward for both organizations. So, after many months of planning, as of June 2022, Hope's Harvest will officially become the home for all hunger relief programming at Farm Fresh Rhode Island. We know that this is just the beginning of new collaborations between Hope's Harvest and Farm Fresh's other programs to further our goals of providing local food to alleviate hunger throughout the state. And out there in the field, nothing will change for those of you who glean with Hope's Harvest. We're still planning to harvest just as much food this year as we ever have. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, or ideas, feel free to reach out to us at hopesharvest@farmfreshri.org. Meet the staff for the 2022 season. We'd like to introduce you to the members of our 2022 Hope's Harvest staff so you know everyone's faces and names when you join us out in the field. We have 3 full-time year-round staff. Ava, myself, our program director, Shannon, our former full-year AmeriCorps Vista and now Operations Associate, and Allie, our new Hunger Relief Associate. She formerly worked with Market Mobile as a full-year AmeriCorps Vista and is excited to help bridge the 2 programs to help us feed more people. Many of you are familiar with Deanne, who is joining us as a Gleaning Associate after serving as our outstanding AmeriCorps Summer Vista last year. She will be staying with us through December this year. We'd also like to introduce Jessie, this year's AmeriCorps Summer Vista, who will be with us through the summer and possibly longer, and Tasha, who will be joining us in July as our full-year Volunteer Communications and Development AmeriCorps Vista. Our team works tirelessly in all conditions, heat, wind, rain, and snow, to get healthy food into the hands of our neighbors, and we're so grateful to them for the huge difference they make in their community. So let's get into it. We at Hope's Harvest believe it's important to provide a primer for everyone who works with us on why we do what we do. As volunteers, we want you to know the broader context of the issues we're working to address and how you fit into that bigger picture when you come out and glean with us. Some of you may have already seen this information in other presentations, but we invite you to revisit it as there's always more to learn and we've added some additional information for this orientation. So let's start by talking about hunger in Rhode Island. In a 2021 status report conducted by the Rhode Island Community Food Bank on hunger in Rhode Island, it was found that 1 in 6 households in Rhode Island lack access to adequate food, and the rate rises to 1 in 4 for families with children. Hunger in Rhode Island has always been an issue, but has been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2020, food insecurity in Rhode Island reached the highest level recorded in 20 years, with 1 in 4 households at risk of hunger. While the rates lowered slightly in 2021, they remain far above pre-COVID levels. Federal benefits made up 57% of the over $51 million worth of food benefits for Rhode Islanders in July last year. But these critical government programs and benefits are ending, despite the continued hardships faced by low-income Rhode Islanders. Food insecurity also disproportionately affects BIPOC individuals due to systemic and structural racism, which encompasses a host of issues including unequal access to jobs and housing, discrimination by banks or government agencies, underfunded public schools, racist policing fueling the incarceration crisis, lack of voting rights or access in Black and Brown communities, and so on and so on. You can see the stark contrast in how many white versus non-white people are food insecure in this diagram published by the Rhode Island Life Index. So when we're thinking about addressing food insecurity, we're stepping into a space where many people's basic needs are not being met and taking on one small piece of that. At the same time that millions of people across the country are going without healthy, fresh food, we're also seeing research that shows a huge amount of produce going to waste on farms. You can see here that food wasted on farms accounts for about 20% of the total food waste in the United States, 17 million tons and about $14 billion in lost revenue for farmers. So why does this happen? Well, farmers aren't doing anything wrong. They're often growing more than they need to make sure they have enough for their markets in the case of bad weather, pests, or disease pressure, and to account for, quote, ugly produce, or produce that's too big or too small for packaging. And farmers run on tight margins and often can't afford to pay their workers to harvest food that isn't going to be sold. Again, there's nothing wrong with that, but rather than see edible food on farms getting brought to the compost pile or fed to farm animals, we want to make sure that it's going to its highest and best use, and if it can feed people, we're able to get it there. Our mission is to improve the livelihoods of local farmers, increase food security for Rhode Island's most vulnerable residents, and get everyone engaged in strengthening the food system by eliminating on-farm food waste in Rhode Island. Well, how do we do this? By rescuing surplus food from hardworking farmers and delivering it to hunger relief agencies across Rhode Island, bringing high-quality fruits and vegetables to children, seniors, and working families in our communities who lack the access to nutritious foods. This process is not a new model, but it has been happening for thousands of years. Farm-based food recovery, also known as gleaning, is the ancient practice of collecting unharvested produce from farmers' fields and distributing it to people in need. So, the farmer lets us know when they have product available in the field, we recruit and manage volunteers to go out and harvest it, and then we bring it to hunger relief agencies across Rhode Island to distribute it to people in need. Our 5th year as a gleaning organization and our merger with Farm Fresh Rhode Island have brought exciting opportunities for Hope's Harvest to expand our hunger relief capabilities. In addition to gleaning, we began purchasing surplus from a handful of larger farms to purchase bulk quantities of crops like carrots and potatoes in 2020. This year, we're continuing to contract with farmers, which not only helps us establish great relationships with our farming partners, but also allows us to compensate our farmers for all their hard work and dedication to helping feed those in need. We'll be contracting with 9 farmers in 2022, and we're proud to say that the majority of these funds will be spent with socially disadvantaged farmers. As we merge with Farm Fresh's infrastructure, we're building capacity to deliver fresh local food from farms to pantries across the state. In 2021, we began working with the Market Mobile team to deliver gleaned produce to pantries who utilize the Market Mobile ordering platform as part of the Farm to Pantry program, to actually purchase locally produced goods, including produce, but also dairy products and other items. With the Hope's Harvest Farm Fresh merger, 20 additional pantries will now receive the option of gleaned produce with their online Market Mobile orders, helping us reach a wider audience and cater to pantries who prefer receiving smaller quantities of food more frequently. Hope's Harvest will also be administering the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Box Program and the Local Food Purchasing Assistance Program in partnership with the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management. As you can see, All of these programs are still focused on delivering the highest quality, locally grown food to hunger relief agencies, and we're thrilled to grow our capacity to do so in a myriad of ways. People often ask where we get our funding and support. We are, as of this season, a program of Farm Fresh Rhode Island and operate out of our brand new food hub in the Valley neighborhood of Providence, which also hosts a year-round indoor farmers market and a number of great local food businesses. Hope's Harvest was started with support from private grants from foundations, including the Rhode Island Foundation, the Cleaning Foundation, and the Champlin Foundation. We receive payments from the Rhode Island Community Food Bank to keep a steady supply of fresh, locally grown produce going out to their member agencies, and also have some business sponsors, like the Newport Restaurant Group, who keep contributing to our work year after year. We also get individual donations from our supporters. So, if you're not able to volunteer with us, or even if you are, know that there are many ways to give to this work to ensure we have the resources we need to keep putting trucks on the road and delivering food. So far, we've been able to recruit over 700 volunteers, 350 of whom have collectively spent over 4,900 hours harvesting 630,000 pounds of fresh fruits and vegetables from about 48 different farms, distributing that produce to 48 hunger relief agencies, and serving approximately 35,000 people per month. We've recovered exponentially more food from year to year since 2018, starting at 36,000 pounds, then 80,000 in 2019, and 230,000 pounds last year. We obviously couldn't have done that again without all the hard work of our farm and agency partners and volunteers like yourself. So thank you. We have 3 major stakeholder groups. First, we work very closely with farmers across Rhode Island and southeastern Massachusetts. This list includes many of the farms we've worked with in the past who we hope to be partnering with again this season. Most of these farms are in Rhode Island, but we also work with some in Massachusetts. These are some of the hunger relief agencies that we work with, ranging from Olneyville Food Center right next door to us in Providence, down to Johnny Cake Peacedale and University of Rhode Island and Johnny Cake Westerly in the southern part of the state. Our agency partners are true heroes, serving their communities every day and making a huge difference by getting our produce out to individuals, families, and senior citizens who struggle to make ends meet. Here's a list of agencies who are currently ordering on the MarketMobile platform and will now have the option of receiving donated gleaned produce with their orders because of our merger with Farm Fresh Rhode Island. Starred agencies are some that we've already successfully tested out this process with. Last, but certainly not least, you, our volunteers. You all are essential in making sure that this project works and that we can increase the value of all of our time and effort by coming together to harvest food. Every volunteer really dramatically increases the amount of food that we're able to recover and distribute, making a huge difference. We've been blessed to have a lot of steady and consistent volunteers who've worked with us over the years, and new recruits every year who join us and fall in love with the sunshine, the earth, and the good we're able to do out in the fields. So that's enough about us. Let's talk about being a gleaner with Hope's Harvest Rhode Island. We get so much positive feedback from volunteers about how much they love gleaning with us out in the fields. Fresh air, being in nature, getting exercise, meeting other volunteers, learning about agriculture and the different farms, and most importantly, making a difference for people in need. You're already here, so you probably already know about these benefits, but we want you to know that we see ourselves as an organization that provides a great experience and great value to our volunteers, and we're here to make sure you get everything you want out of your time with us. Let's get into the details of how it works. Gleaning with Hope's Harvest is a 2-part process. First, registering as a volunteer, and second, signing up for trips. All registration forms and requirements are available on our new website located on the Farm Fresh Rhode Island site on our volunteer page. The first thing you need to do is watch the volunteer orientation video. Yes, this one. Congratulations, you're almost done with step 1. The next step is to take the post-orientation quiz, also available on our volunteer page. You'll be asked questions based on this video you're watching, so be sure to watch thoroughly. You need a 75%, 6 of 8 questions correct or higher to be an approved volunteer. You can access both the video and the slides on our volunteer page for you to reference. Read the media waiver, liability waiver, volunteer agreement, and COVID-19 waivers, all available on our volunteer page. Our media and liability waivers and the volunteer agreement have not changed this year, so if you've already read them, you're good to go. Please read the new COVID-19 waiver to review our updated policies and make sure to check all the boxes for these in the registration form. Complete the registration form at the bottom of our volunteer page. This step confirms your agreement to the media liability, volunteer agreement, and COVID-19 waivers. Once you complete this form, you will be automatically signed up to our newsletter and receive weekly email notifications of upcoming trips. If you've already completed this form, you should do it again to make sure you're renewing your agreement to our updated COVID policies. It's also a good way to update your information in our system if your address, email address, phone, etc. have changed. Note that the only required questions on this form are the first name, last name, and email address. So if everything else is the same, feel free to skip those questions and just complete the top 3 fields and the checkboxes at the bottom. Congratulations! If you passed the quiz with a 75% or higher and have read and agreed to all of the waivers, you're now a registered and approved volunteer. So now we'll go into how to sign up for trips once you've registered. Event invitations are sent out to our email list on a weekly basis. Volunteers click on the link to sign up for specific trips based on availability. Basic information is collected, such as name, email, phone number, to contact during trips. For every trip, you must sign that you agree to the volunteer agreement, COVID-19 agreement, media waiver, liability waiver, and confirm that you have watched the orientation video and completed the post-orientation quiz. You will receive information about farm location and trip confirmation after signing up for an individual trip on Eventbrite, where you will then join Hope's Harvest and other volunteers on that trip at that farm for 1 to 3 hours. Hope's Harvest staff provide safety and harvest training 10 minutes before the start of each trip. Event invitations are sent out via email on a weekly basis, sometimes more during the peak season, usually on Saturday mornings. We don't know exactly when these will go out because we're often finalizing trip details right up until we send out the invitations. Trips can fill up fast, so keep your eyes out. Volunteers click on the link to sign up for specific trips based on your availability. When you click on the link in our email, you will be sent to sign up for your trip on Eventbrite. Basic information is collected: name, email, and phone number. Please help our team by ensuring you've entered updated, accurate, and spell-checked information when signing into Eventbrite. For every trip, you must sign that you agree to the volunteer agreement, COVID-19 agreement, media waiver, liability waiver, and confirm you've watched the orientation video and completed the post-orientation quiz. You will receive information about the farm location, directions, and any special equipment or trip details in an emailed trip confirmation after signing up for an individual trip on Eventbrite. Sometimes these go to your spam box, and sometimes the trip directions get cut off at the bottom of the email. Click on the 3 dots at the bottom of your email if this happens to see the full trip information. Please do not bring friends unless they have already signed up using the above process. We promise farmers that we won't put them at risk of liability, and the sign-up process is how we protect them and keep our relationships with the farm so they keep working with us. Join Hope's Harvest and other volunteers on your gleaning trip. Arrive at the designated start time and location to meet our staff. They will be identifiable by a bright orange bandana or Hope's Harvest hat. Hope's Harvest staff provides safety and harvest training 10 minutes before the start of each trip. We do have hand washing stations, and you will be required to wash your hands before you begin gleaning, but we cannot guarantee accessible restrooms, so please consider that in advance. We will also be handing out our bright orange Hope's Harvest bandanas to all new gleaners for your first trip. Not only are these a cool piece of swag, but also help our farm partners identify our volunteers easily from a distance. We just ask that if we've provided you with one already, hold on to it and remember to keep bringing it with you on trips. Hope's Harvest is dedicated to providing for our friends, families, and neighbors in need, and we take our responsibility to the people we serve very seriously. That includes the farmers and their staff, agencies, and everyone who receives our food, and you, our volunteers. For that reason, Hope's Harvest is abiding by the Rhode Island Department of Health's updated guidance for COVID-19 as defined in RIDO's Safe Activities Regulations, and will be closely monitoring the CDC's local geographic COVID-19 community levels. We strongly encourage volunteers to monitor their own community levels and follow these guidelines as suggested. In 2022, we will be requiring all staff and volunteers to keep a mask of either surgical, KN95, or N95 grade on your person and available during a gleaning trip at all times. It is extremely important that we are prepared to mask up to meet the safety or policy needs of any of our partners or fellow gleaners. Although we are changing our guidelines at Hope's Harvest, the farms and businesses that we visit may ask us to comply with their guidelines. Additionally, screening requirements are very much still in effect. Monitoring our symptoms and exposure is one of the easiest ways we can slow the spread of COVID-19 and be thoughtful to those around us. These screening requirements, detailed in our COVID safety agreement, are for the health and safety of our team members, volunteers, and those who receive food from Hope's Harvest. Therefore, please continue to monitor and screen symptoms prior to all gleaning trips. You will not be permitted to attend a gleaning trip if exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19, sore throat, running nose, cough, difficulty breathing, loss of taste or smell, or fever, or if you have tested positive for COVID-19 in the last 10 days. If you've been in close contact with an individual exhibiting symptoms or who tested positive for COVID-19, please do not attend a gleaning trip unless you're fully vaccinated and are able to remain masked. Despite vaccination status, you should monitor your symptoms for 10 days before attending another gleaning trip. If you experience any of the above symptoms of COVID-19 while in attendance on a gleaning trip, you should immediately notify the staff trip leader on duty and accept all directions from staff to mitigate any safety risks. In the 2022 gleaning season, we require that you be masked under the following circumstances: during any indoor activities, regardless of vaccination status. If you are not fully vaccinated or choose not to disclose your vaccination status, or have been in close contact with a person exhibiting symptoms of or who has tested positive for COVID-19 within the previous 10 days, despite vaccination status. Thank you for your understanding. If we need to update policies over the course of the season, we will make sure to keep all volunteers informed of changes. In summary, here are the precautions we're requiring from our volunteers this season. Register to be a volunteer by watching this volunteer orientation video, completing the post-orientation quiz, and agreeing to the COVID-19 volunteer agreement. Additionally, we ask that you go through our pre-screening questions during each trip sign-up and monitor for symptoms on site. We ask that you always bring a personal face mask, surgical, KN95, or N95 to fully cover nose and mouth to the trip, as well as water bottle, personal supplies, gloves, hand sanitizer, and sunscreen. While on site, we require following our on-site guidelines for volunteers, which includes safety procedures review at the beginning of each trip, hand washing required and provided, social distancing of 3 feet in the field and loading the truck. Staff will manage and monitor this. No volunteers in Hope's Harvest vehicles or other gleaners' vehicles. No sharing equipment. Packing and bunching will be done in the field, not in the truck. Volunteers may be asked to leave if they are not following proper safety protocol. As always, you can find an extensive list of what to bring on a trip on our volunteer information page. We will also continue taking requests for masked trips. If you know that you want to glean with us but can't attend a trip with unmasked people for whatever reason, you can request a masked trip and remain anonymous. We will make sure that everyone signing up and attending that trip knows that it is a mask-required trip. Email Shannon at shannonh@farmfreshri.org if you're interested in this option. And of course, volunteers are welcome to wear a mask at any time based on their personal preference and informed by their personal level of risk. In closing, we know our volunteers are dedicated, community-minded, and thoughtful individuals who also care deeply about the health and well-being of our fellow gleaners, and so we expect and require that everyone who attends will follow our policies for the season. If you're not able to for any reason, please know that we value your contributions and look forward to gleaning with you again when you're able to join us out in the fields. If you have any questions about this video, registration, or sign-up process, please reach out to us by emailing hopesharvest@farmfreshri.org. Thank you for your time and dedication to our program, and we look forward to seeing you in the fields in 2022.